The moment my husband casually asked another woman how many weeks remained until a judge declared me mentally incompetent, I did not scream, gasp, or drop my glass. We were sitting in a private dining room 30 stories above downtown Seattle, watching rain streak across the glass while servers moved like shadows around our table. I simply lowered my eyes, smoothed the napkin across my lap, and let my fingers rest against the stem of my wine glass. Sometimes the most effective survival strategy is allowing the people betraying you to believe you have no idea what they are doing. My name is Evelyn Mercer, and at 58 years old, I was watching the man I married systematically organize the theft of my entire life. Blake had arranged this dinner to impress Reina Kuroda, a sharp investment executive visiting from Tokyo who was supposedly helping expand my hotel company, Harbor and Pine. What he had forgotten, or perhaps never bothered to learn, was that my years restoring properties in Japan had made me fluent in the language. He believed I knew only a few polite phrases, which meant he felt completely safe discussing my destruction right in front of me, while offering me a soft smile and another bite of fish. He played the part of a devoted husband with practiced precision, leaning over to adjust my cardigan and telling Reina how tired I had been lately. He spoke in a gentle, concerned voice that made his cruelty look like devotion to anyone watching from another table. When I softly reminded him that I still understood my own business, his hand tightened around mine just enough to leave a mark. He assured me I needed rest, then turned to Reina and switched seamlessly to Japanese, asking if I always rambled about the past when my memory started slipping. Reina laughed, a polished and cold sound, before asking how much longer they had to wait for the medical evaluation. Blake took a slow sip of his drink and explained that Dr. Bell was submitting his report next week, confirming that my supposed cognitive decline was progressing on schedule. He casually mentioned that he had increased my medication 4 days ago, which explained why I had woken up disoriented and confused the previous morning. They both looked at me, watching for any sign that I understood, so I deliberately fumbled my water glass to give them the precise performance they expected. Seeing my hand tremble, Blake guided the glass back to the table with exaggerated care while telling Reina in Japanese that 2 more public episodes would be enough to secure emergency legal authority. Once the court granted him control, he planned to sell my company for $24 million, pocketing the payout while placing me in a locked memory facility near Spokane. Reina observed me, as if I were a piece of outdated furniture scheduled for disposal, noting how strange it was that a woman could build a hospitality empire only to sit quietly while strangers divided it up. That was the exact moment something inside me shifted from heartbreak to absolute resolve. The betrayal hurt, but learning that my husband had been deliberately poisoning my mind to steal my life's work triggered a cold, focused clarity I had not felt in years. For months I had been losing my balance, forgetting simple words, and doubting my own sanity, all while Blake stood beside me offering another glass of water and another dose of pills. He had turned my own mind into a prison, relying on my trust to keep the doors locked from the inside. When my spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered against the ceramic plate, Blake immediately reached across to wipe a drop of sauce from my sleeve, sighing as if caring for me was draining his spirit. I offered Reina a weak, embarrassed smile in English, apologizing for my exhaustion. She offered polite sympathy aloud, but as Blake turned to call for the check, she leaned closer and whispered in Japanese that I should enjoy these fancy dinners while I could, because soon I would be eating off a plastic tray in a locked room. I held her gaze for a single second, allowing my eyes to lose focus just enough to look like an aging woman slipping into confusion. What she failed to realize was that I had spent decades dealing with aggressive contractors and hostile corporate takeovers long before I ever met Blake. On the drive home, as Blake tried to convince me I was hallucinating words, I secretly resolved to use their own arrogance against them. The moment we arrived home, I feigned fatigue, slipped into my design room, and retrieved an encrypted phone hidden behind a lacquered drawer. I immediately called my attorney and trusted friend, Marisol Vega, exposing Blake's plot, the corrupt Dr. Bell, and the forced medication. Marisol mobilized an investigative team while I carefully pawned my night medication, saving the pills as evidence and replacing them with harmless lookalikes. Within 48 hours, forensic accountant Daniel Cho discovered Blake had already siphoned nearly $2 million into Reina's shell companies. While lab tests confirmed my pills contained heavy sedatives, Meanwhile, an environmental specialist installed hidden cameras in our shared home spaces, capturing undeniable video of Blake and Raina plotting to ruin my reputation at the upcoming preservation gala. Equipped with hard evidence, we let them walk straight into our trap. At the gala, I intentionally gave a confused performance, mistaking names and dates to make Blake and Raina feel completely victorious. Following my deliberate public stumbles, Blake felt so confident that he aggressively forced my hand to sign financial authorizations the next morning, leaving deep bruises on my wrist, all captured on hidden camera. He immediately scheduled the final corporate transfer for $29 million at the hotel that night. What Blake and Raina failed to comprehend was that while Blake managed the operating company, I had structured the actual real estate, trademarks, and intellectual property under independent trusts years ago. On the night of the signing, while Blake believed I was sleeping under sedatives, I transferred all hotel property deeds and brand licensing into the Cedar Legacy Trust. The operating company Blake was selling became an empty shell stripped of every real asset. At the private signing dinner, after the escrow funds cleared and Blake signaled transport attendants to wheel me away to the memory facility, I stood up straight from the wheelchair in my tailored ivory suit. I unfastened the belt, locked the wheels myself, and addressed the frozen room in fluent Japanese. I informed a horrified Raina that she had just paid $29 million for an empty operating shell saddled with $31 million in accrued debt. Before Blake could speak, Marisol signaled state investigators, who lowered a projection screen and played the clear audio and video recordings of Blake forcing my signature, discussing my illegal medication, and plotting the theft of my company. Hotel security restrained a screaming Blake while police handcuffed both him and Raina for fraud, coercion, and elder abuse. 3 months later, standing on the balcony of our coastal hotel with my daughter Claire after recovering the letters Blake had hidden to divide us, I knew my life was finally restored. Blake tried to make me disappear into the shadows, but he forgot that a foundation built on truth can survive any storm. In the end, underestimating a woman who knows her own worth isn't just a mistake, it is absolute ruin.